Welcome back, my favorite Tzaddikim and Hasidim, as always. I hope you're doing well. We're trying a little bit of change this time with this video, and hopefully with some videos going forward, a little bit on our end, or my end. Why am I referring to myself in the plural? Why do people do this? A little bit on my end, and then a little bit on your end. As you can see, we just bought a library, and now we're sitting in it. Wink, wink. Anyway, so today we're going to be both reacting to and discussing this topic of deconstructionism, specifically using the video by Miss Christy Burke herself. She is a famous Christian deconstructionist here on YouTube, and while I obviously don't agree with her on everything, I do agree with a lot of the things that she has to say about deconstructing her Christianity, which is something that I myself did. That's how I ended up in Judaism. And then many of the feelings that she had and her experiences that she's had coming out of that, and also now after she has been out of it, how people treat her. These are things that a lot of us can sympathize with, empathize with. Some of these things we've personally experienced ourselves. And so I would like to use this video as the vehicle to discuss this broad array of topics. So without further ado, let's get into the new style video and start discussing this topic.
It's a very big movement today in our world. Understandably, I get it. I know why there are so many defectors from Christianity, so many who are calling themselves ex-evangelicals or ex-Vs or Christian deconstructionists or hashtag empty the pews or whatever else. The reason there are so many is because there are so many false Christians.
So this is what's known as the no true Scotsman fallacy.
So according to logicalfallacies.org, the no true Scotsman fallacy is defined as a form of informal logical fallacy, meaning you're being illogical. It's a form of informal logical fallacy that is used to reject any counterexamples to an argument in order to protect a sweeping generalization. In essence, it involves redefining the terms of an argument in order to make it valid. The fallacy is named after a statement made by a Scottish man who was attempting to defend the reputation of people from Scotland. The statement went something like this: "No true Scotsman would ever do such a thing." Right? We find this all of the time. I've heard this from even within my own family. "Oh, well, son, those weren't true Christians that did that. Those weren't true Christians that said that wrote that did that. The Crusades aren't Christians' faults. Those were Catholics who did that, not Christians. And of course we know Catholics aren't true Christians. Duh." And of course, then this excuses all sorts of bad behavior. As, what we just read, or as you just heard, as what it says, it can excuse anything. "Oh, well, they didn't believe properly, so they weren't true Christians. They didn't subscribe to my doctrine. They didn't belong to my church. They weren't this, they weren't that." Also, that any counterexamples that you have can be immediately discredited and say, "Oh, those aren't really counterexamples against Christians because Christians are pure and flawless and we never sin." Except they'll also admit, "Oh, we're all sinners, saved by grace, of course, through faith, not of works, lest any man should boast." Continuing.
It's when you paint everyone else out to be not a true Christian if they don't align with your specific doctrine or ideologies. There's no way to actually prove that these aren't true or genuine Christians. It's just an accusation that's thrown out to make it seem like everyone else doesn't know what they're talking about, but you do. I think it's really interesting that he says the reason so many people are leaving the church is because of false Christians. The reason people are leaving the church, according to Pew Research, is because they just stopped believing. They don't believe anymore. It's not believable. You don't have compelling enough evidence for people to want to stay.
There are two categories of false disciples, two categories of false Christians. Category number one, those who find out at the judgment. Those are the people who think they're Christians all the way through their life, only to find out that when they face God, he never knew them. Matthew 7, right?
Imagine spending your entire life dedicated to Jesus. You go to church, you worship, you read your Bible, you live your life as to be as good of a person as you can. You live by the teachings of Jesus. You do everything you think you're supposed to do. And then you get to heaven and you're standing before God and he looks at you and he says, I don't know you. You're going to hell. Like God's gonna gaslight you when you get there. Like you spent your whole life worshiping him and having a relationship with him, and he's gonna pretend like he never knew you. This idea that you could be deceived into having a fake relationship with Jesus, that you could worship God the wrong way or think that you're worshiping God and really you're not. That idea is so damaging. It's so harmful, especially with people who have issues with anxiety, paranoia. I was one of those people, especially as a kid. I was always afraid that I wasn't a true Christian or I didn't say the prayer the right way. I wasn't really saved. So, like, who's doing the deceiving? Well, they say Satan is behind it all, but God's the one that put Satan here to allow him to deceive people. And so really it's all God's responsibility. And is it really good of God to punish people eternally just because they were deceived? Because they didn't worship him the right way. They didn't have the right denomination. Is it really a fair system that someone can be deceived into thinking they're worshiping Jesus and Jesus just he doesn't care. He doesn't know you. You're going to hell.
Now, as the aspiring tzaddikim and chassidim that we're wanting to be, we might disagree with Christy on the first part. So obviously, worshiping God properly is very important. We can't be arsons for God, right? We can't be burning down our neighbors' houses thinking that it's service to God. There was a case in Texas some years back where there were pole dancers for Jesus.
Every second Sunday of the month, Crystal Deans invites female churchgoers into her pole dancing studio.
On the Sundays when we do the pole fitness for Jesus, we do the upbeat contemporary Christian music because, people have to bring their church program to get into the class. So we basically are just continuing the whole worship thing.
Obviously, that's not a thing. Can't do that. It's a thing in the sense that it exists, but we can't be pole dancing for Jesus. Especially me, given that I can't dance at all. And so we have to be doing good things in good ways and for good purposes. Everything has to be good. Otherwise, we're left asking, wait, we're allowed to do bad things, right? There's allowed to be a bad element to what we're doing. No, of course we can't do that. It's silly. And so we have to be doing the right things for the right reasons and in the right ways. And then we will be righteous. We'll be righteous. That's what makes a person righteous, or in other words, right. By doing the right thing, by being in harmony with right, with correctness, with the truth, with morality. All of these being, in a certain sense, aspects of God. Right? God is the way, God is the truth, God is the light and the life and all of these things. Yes, I'm making allusions to the Gospel of John. God is all of these things. Where do you think Jesus got it from? He says, I do nothing of myself other than what the Father's shown me. So we find that God showed him to do these things, he did them, and then he became them because he was living in harmony with these things. When you live in harmony with the truth, you start becoming incarnate truths, or incarnate truth, singular. Right? When you live in accordance with and in harmony with righteousness, you start becoming the incarnate righteousness, or in other words, righteous. Faith doesn't justify you, beliefs don't justify you, doctrines don't justify you, having strongly sincere opinions don't justify you. It's by doing good. It's by worshiping God correctly, which in Hebrew, it's this word avodah, or avodah. And this word literally means service. That's what worship is. That's the essence of worship. It's serving God. How do we serve God? It's by obeying what he said to do, When there's a master-servant relationship, that's how the servant best serves his master, is by serving him to the way that he said to be served. If God asks us to go fetch him a lemonade, you go fetch God a lemonade.
So, yeah, I'm only from Jersey, but I do believe that if he wants a sandwich,
you make daddy a sandwich.
Most of the time.
No. Let me ask you this. Well, okay, let me ask you this. If me and you out and somebody say something slick to you,
You punch him in the face.
You want me to smack him in his mouth, right?
That's right.
So if I take you on a date and I say, look, baby, we gonna go Dutch.
No.
Exactly. If we walking up to the car and I don't open your car door, what do you say?
Open the door.
You better believe it.
Yeah, no, I am with you. I think
So you make daddy a sandwich.
I think I will after I get out of the shower. But it'll get done.
If I'm outside cutting that grass, bring daddy some lemonade. It's hot outside. I'm cutting all this grass.
That's what a good servant does. If you bring him back some orange juice, if you bring him back some chocolate milk, if you bring him back an Arnold Palmer, fantastic. But that's not what he asked for, you know? It's like, you know, there's this debate as to whether, serving God out of love or fear, which one's better? Well, if you're serving God out of love, it's because you personally love. Whereas when you serve God out of fear or reverence, it's because of him, right? That's why it's a superior form of worship. Loving God is fantastic. Absolutely, we need to be loving God. But in terms of motivation, are we serving him because we want to or because he asked us to? Of course, we need to be doing it at all, right? And either of these is great. But doing so because he said so is difficult, but it's the highest form of worship. God, I don't understand. I don't know why I'm doing this. I don't know why you told me to do it. But I don't care. I'm going to serve you because you said so. Why do we need to go burn up a red cow and throw it on ourselves? Because he said so. Why are we not eating pig? Because he said so. Why are we observing Shabbos, the Sabbath? Because he said so. When we start doing everything in life because God said so. Now, of course, understanding the underlying purpose of these things and the rationale behind them and the reason why Hashem gave these things, fantastic things that even is better than not knowing, or can be better than not knowing. But that doesn't absolve us from the fact that we need to be obeying him because he said so. So ultimately, it does matter what we do and how we do it. So how we worship God, obviously, is very, very important. However, I think what Christy was really trying to get at, because she clarifies and she says, you know, whether you're Baptist or Presbyterian, I think those were the examples that she gave. You know, no, it doesn't matter which church you belong to or attend. We need to be doing right no matter what our station in life is, no matter where we are in life, whether we're Baptist, whether we're Presbyterian, whether we're Orthodox Jews, whether we're Noahites, right? In righteous Gerim, we need to be doing right. So if she was just saying that it doesn't matter how we worship God, that's obviously not correct. We wouldn't agree with her on that. But if we take her next words as clarification of what she meant, then I would fully and wholeheartedly agree with her, or at least how I'm interpreting her.
Paul said to the Corinthians, every time you come to the Lord's table, you do a self-examination to make sure you're a genuine believer so that you're not believing something so minimally that you're believing for no good at all.
Right there. John MacArthur is encouraging you to deconstruct your faith. And he's even using the Bible to tell you to do it. He just doesn't realize it because he's got the wrong definition of deconstruction. He's not actually listening when people talk about what deconstruction is. If he would have bothered to listen to anybody's story, to really listen, he would know that that's not what it is. But right there, he's telling you, examine your faith. There's a lot of false teachings out there. Make sure that what you believe is true. Be critical about your beliefs. He's encouraging people to deconstruct, and he doesn't even realize it. He's preaching a whole sermon on why you shouldn't deconstruct. And then right there at the very beginning tells you to deconstruct.
I don't think it's ever been quite as tempting to false disciples to abandon the church as it is today. Because being a defector from Christianity carries with it, in this culture, a kind of victimization heroism.
In my experience, it was actually the total opposite, where I lost friendships and my relationships with my family were damaged. Now, granted, when I first started to express interest in Torah, I was what many people would refer to as a Torah terrorist. You know, I tried to force it on people. I was argumentative. And these things obviously didn't help. But even after the fact, you know, this was the case with a few of my friends. And perhaps for good reason, they didn't want to be around me anymore. It took me a long time to, quote unquote, you know, come out to my family. And even when I did so, I tried to, you know, with the utmost meekness and humility and kindness, because I had learned a little bit better by that point. And I was also afraid for how they would react. And certainly defecting from Christianity did not make me more popular, did not make me, it really, socially speaking, it didn't help me at all. Now, in some respect, I did make more friends eventually online, and I do talk with them, and I love these people. But that's bound to happen no matter what you do, whether you're Christian or whether you're not Christian. You're going to meet people online. So, yeah, Facebook has been great for meeting new people, and you form new friendships and acquaintances, and you're able to discuss these things. But thinking that defecting from Christianity makes you some kind of cultural hero or makes you look edgier, or I mean, maybe in certain circumstances, like if you're into atheist activism or something. But generally, people get a lot of crap for leaving the church, and it's often from bitter ex-Christians who look at you, bewildered by what you're doing, not understanding why you did it, and also not interested in knowing why you did it. I think in part because they've been taught not to. They've been taught not to be curious. They've been taught that curiosity, well, killed the cat, and they're the cats. And so there's this kind of underlying anti-curiosity strain within the church where they don't want questions. They want you to sit down and shut up and listen to the sermon, listen to the Bible study, provide input that is, now granted, this is true of every group, so I'm not trying to pick on Christianity here, but to offer comments and insights that are in line with what they teach. Right. So again, while that does describe every group, otherwise, what is the group if there's no homogeneity? But it does reflect a larger problem, which is there's a strong anti-intellectualism within populist movements.
You ain't welcome here no more, smart boy.
I'm detecting a distinct strain of anti-intellectualism in this tavern.
Power off, Einstein.
And evangelical Christianity is a populist movement. It's often led by laity or by pastors with very little or even no formal education. And I don't mean that you have to go to a university. Go to some unaccredited Bible college, right? Learn some Hebrew and Greek. Learn how to study the Bible. Like, learn the history of it. Study some archaeology. Study some science. Like, these are things that, to be an educated religious person, we need to know these things. And unfortunately, people have this harebrained, excuse me, but this harebrained perspective of, I literally only need to know Christ and Him crucified. Literally.
We preach Christ and Him crucified. 1 Corinthians 1:17, for Christ did not send me to baptize, but to preach the gospel and outward words of eloquent wisdom, lest the cross of Christ be emptied of its power.
Even though, and that comes from a passage in Paul, even though Paul didn't even live by this, he didn't just teach Christ and Him crucified. He taught lots of different things. But even when Paul doesn't live by this, how can you expect the entire church to live like this? And they never did throughout history. And yet, within the past roughly 100 years, since the early 1900s, when evangelicalism became a thing, and yes, I know it existed before then, but it became big at that time. So leave your comments. And by that, I mean refrain from commenting. I already know that. Although, of course, you can always welcome to comment, but still, don't call me out and say, oh, well, they didn't start in the 1900s. It started in 1832 or whenever it started. I understand. But that's when it became really big and popular, at least in the U.S. And the U.S. is the home of evangelicalism. And no one's going to convince me otherwise. I know the history. But this extreme populism, which has unfortunately infiltrated the party that I prefer. I still prefer that party, but I don't like the populism. This has also entered into religion, where everybody thinks that they're a scholar, everybody thinks that their opinions matter, everybody thinks that their 2 cents is just as enlightened as anybody else's. And unfortunately, it's not. If you don't study something, you shouldn't be commenting. There's plenty of things that I don't know almost anything about. In certain niche subjects, I don't know anything about. I enjoyed Pokemon and Dragon Ball when I was younger. Does that make me an anime expert? No. I don't even consider myself an anime fan. I liked those two shows. But I'm not going to go around claiming something that I'm not, right? Because then if you tell somebody, oh, I'm an anime fan, they're going to bring up all these things that I have no familiarity with. So refrain from embarrassing yourself. I try to refrain from embarrassing myself. Let's stick to what we know and be humble about the things that we don't. If you're not knowledgeable about your own religion, that is okay. I am not here to judge you, and I don't really even care what your religion is, for our purposes right now. If you're not knowledgeable about your religion, that is okay. Buy some books and just start studying. If you study some of the history and study some of the basic theology, you'll probably be light years beyond most of your co-religionists, believe me. Especially within Christianity, like we're saying, they don't like questions. They like Christ and Him crucified. So whenever you try to delve deeper into things, and I have witnessed this firsthand of people being treated like this and myself being treated like this, of you study too much. Why are you studying all this man-made stuff? It's like man-made stuff. This is a history of the church. Like, you don't want to know how we got here. You don't want to know, like, why there are different churches. You don't want to know what happened between the time of the apostles and, when you were born. And really, we don't even remember when we were born. So it's like, what, up until, let's say I was born in 1992. So then add 5 or 6 years. Okay, so like from 30 CE up until, 1996 or 7. You don't want to know what happened? Why is there such a lack of curiosity? And unfortunately, it's because of this populist, anti-intellectualist perspective or attitude. And really, that's the word that I prefer. It is an attitude. And it's a sour attitude that a lot of these people, unfortunately, have. And this is not 100%, but it's a majority. And it's the majority that defines the culture. So unfortunately, there is a culture of anti-intellectualism in populist movements. I consider myself far-right, conservative, with very strong traditional values. I'm not on the right on every single issue. For example, I would like to see the decriminalization and the legalization of psychedelics under certain circumstances, along with marijuana. So, that puts you on the left. Okay, I also want to, ban gay marriage and I would love, rabbis to be heading all the schools in America and teaching everybody the Bible, but that's not going to happen, right? You have to be realistic too. So yeah, I love the idea of a theocracy. So now I'm far right, right? I'm also for lower taxes, including gay people. Right? I think gays should have low taxes. So they should bear arms. Like, I'm libertarian now. It's just about doing what you think is best. And unfortunately, when people don't think very much, they follow the well-trodden paths. If you were raised conservative, you're probably going to die conservative. If you were raised liberal, you're probably going to die liberal, right? And I can't totally fault these people, but at the same time, you do have free will to think. I saw a meme one time on Facebook. There's this picture of Moses saying, "Let my people think." Let my people think. Come on, let's start asking good questions. Don't be afraid of the truth. Be afraid of the people who don't want you to know the truth. Because, as we know, the truth will set you free.
I want to walk away from the church and walk away from Christ openly, publicly, because you would be shunned, you would be isolated, you would have nowhere to turn, you would be treated like a pariah, like a Judas. But today, you can go on the internet and find tens of thousands of friends who will applaud you as a hero.
The first time I heard this, I had to rewind it and listen to it again and then listen to what he says after, because I was waiting for, I don't know what I was waiting on, but it wasn't that. Did you hear that? Back in the good old days, you used to be shunned. You would be ashamed to leave the church. People would treat you poorly if you left the church, but no more. Now they support you. He wants the church to treat people who are leaving the church poorly. He wants people leaving the church to be shunned, to be outcast, to be treated like a pariah. That's what he wants. That's ideal to him. Where is the love of Jesus in that? Treating people with kindness, standing up for the marginalized.
This seems to be a really common thing where, and again, this is not all Christians, but especially within those movements, unfortunately, that tend to be more conservative, which generally I would consider a great thing. Typically, the more conservative you are, the more they feel offended when you leave. Now, Christie's coming at this from the perspective of somebody who becomes more atheist, more liberal. They go to the left. A lot of Christians will look at that and say, "Oh, you're becoming more immoral. You're becoming worse. You're becoming less ethical, less spiritual." But how do they treat people who go further right? Well, how do they treat people who go to Judaism and take on more, who look at Christianity and say Christianity is full of godlessness and immorality? And they'll say, "Well, what do you mean? We don't support gay marriage." I say, "Great." They say, "Well, we don't support sleeping around before marriage." And I say, "Great. That's fantastic. I'm glad that you don't do that." That's one of the things we could agree on morally. They say, "Well, we believe in telling the truth and giving to charity. We believe in all these things." And I say, "Well, fantastic." Right? Now, this is totally besides whether people actually do these things or not, but at least we can agree. But then when you bring up anything outside of what they already believe, they'll either call you judgmental, they'll call you legalistic, they'll call you a Judaizer, they'll say that, all those things are burdens. It's like, well, leftist Christians say that your code of morality is a burden to them. You are no different. There's literally no difference. You have small, medium, and large, where you have minimally Christian people, let's say. You have maximally Christian people who have a very strong code of ethics, very strong sense of morality, very, decent traditional people. And then you have Orthodox Jews who are doing all the good stuff that the Christians do, plus some. Everybody upstream from you is going to call you, they're going to end up calling you a legalist. And anybody downstream from you who does less, you're going to end up calling them a libertine. And so a lot of conservative Christians find themselves in the middle, kind of this middle-sized cup. They look at the leftist Christians, like the United Methodists and the Episcopalians, who accept all the gay stuff, and they'll say, they're libertines, they're ungodly. And then they'll look at the like the United Brethren or the Mennonites, especially the Amish, and they'll look at these groups and they'll say, "Oh, these people are too strict. They don't have freedom in Christ. Where's the grace? Where's the love?" And by grace and love, they truly mean the freedom to do whatever you want, within the very minimally restrictive confines that they've established. Right? If you go to an Orthodox church, or like Eastern Orthodox, so it's Greek Orthodox, Russian Orthodox, Syrian Orthodox, you go to any of these Orthodox churches, all the women are dressed modestly, all the people are kind, and they have a Avodah Zarah in their churches, which is a horrible thing. But at least they tend to treat people well. And their standard of morality, I hate to say it, is a lot stricter and a lot better than what these evangelicals are peddling in their mega churches. And yes, you can have a 200-person mega church. How? If you're putting stuff up on the screen and you have a light show and a rock band, and if you have Bethel and Hillsong as part of your services, you're a micro mega church. You are the finger of a mega church, right? You have mega church culture. And no, I'm not saying that you have to be singing hymns, right? All of these hymns were just the modern music of 200 years ago. But unfortunately, the Protestant movement has a history and a tradition of rebellion. So they love the new, they love the flashy, they love the edginess, because that's what the founding fathers of their faith, Martin Luther, Calvin, and Zwingli, and all these other people, the Protestant founding fathers were rebels. They revolted against the Mother Church, which is Catholicism, and in my perspective, the Catholic Church had deviated from the original church, the Orthodox Church. Now, you could disagree with this, and that's perfectly fine. My point is that Protestantism and its culmination in evangelicalism, evangelical dispensationalism in particular, that this movement is the height of Protestant arrogance, it's the height of Protestant rebellion, and that's why so many of these churches are going woke. And then people are looking back aghast, thinking, oh, gee whiz, how did this happen? Oh, why? I don't understand what's going on. Oh, it's the end times. I know it's the great falling away. You doofus. The evangelical movement is part of the falling away, if you believe that such a thing is even happening, or will happen. Because it comes from Catholicism. Catholicism is part of the falling away. Christianity in general is part of the falling away. It was founded by the very wolves that Jesus warned his followers about. He said that in their time, while they were still alive, wolves would come in, they'd sneak in, and they would start tampering. They'd start mutating. They'd start corrupting things. The problem with Christianity does not go back to the Catholic Church. It doesn't go to the 1500s with Martin Luther and the Reformers. It goes back to the end of the first century, when this movement started to run amok. Why? I lay a lot of the blame, not entirely, but a lot of the blame at the feet of Saul of Tarsus. That's another episode, though. Thanks for watching. You want to stick around and watch the next one?